What's up, Capper?
Nothing. Everything's okay. Everything's good.
Good.
I had to go to the store today because of grocery shopping. Would you know what a shallot is? You know what a shallot is?
Yes. Yeah. It's
Not
like an
Gene
onion.
Shalit, not the movie guy.
No, it's a cross between garlic, like garlic and an onion.
Yeah, but how many guys would know that?
I mean, if you cook,
Oh my god! If you cook,
or as if you watch any Gordon Ramsay cooking shows, a shallot, a
a
shallot.
shallot?
Yeah,
No,
they're great shallots.
well, I know, but I was
They're
on
great
tour.
flavor.
When I go to ShopRite or whatever, it's like a treasure hunt for joining a fraternity. It's like, and I swear my wife throws in one or two just to bust on me, just to get me out of the house for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Shallot was the magic one today.
I need an hour to myself. Let me go tell him to get shallots.
Shallots.
But like, did she send you to? The question would be, did like she send you to Kohl's to get a shallot?
No. That would be obvious. Well, because
That would be
shallot
too
does
obvious.
sound like something you would put into your fence or something. A little shallot.
Yes. Home Depot. You're asking the guy in the plumbing aisle at Home Depot, do you have any shallots?
Any shallot. What the frick is a shallot? I don't know. I'd like to put that out there to see who knows what that is.
It'll be a
besides you.
poll. We'll do a poll on it. But I'm afraid that a lot of people will know shallot. I guess that's, you don't do any of the cooking, then I assume, at your house. I know you
I
don't.
do some. I cook breakfast,
Grilling.
but I don't
Grill.
I grill and I cook breakfast. I'm okay. I mean, my wife just loves
Yeah.
to cook, so that's again, we're really good off air.
Well, I think we've actually started. I don't know if you know that.
Do we begin?
Why, we're going to deny the world your shallot story? I mean, come on. I'm gonna get, because you're always my hype man. You're always a great hype man. You're great at
You're easy to
get
hype.
people upped up. You
Yeah.
love to throw compliments around. So I'm gonna hype you, because I was doing a shout out to Virginia McDonald, has this little podcast. She's a local teacher in my community who has been a cancer survivor, not once, but twice. And she does a little podcast about people who are going through challenging things and, coming through. And Grit, Grace, and Gratitude is the title of her podcast. It's a little shout out to her. But she comes on, it's not a sports podcast at all by any means. And she comes on and she goes, in all the conversations I've had with people in the preparation to do this interview with you, they said to me, you have to make sure you ask about the capper. Like, she wanted to know about the capper.
Right,
So even that, non-sports, in the community, they want to know about the capper and all about our relationship and everything. So, I just wanted to make sure I pass that on to you.
Thank you.
Even in these kind of side things I do that are non-sports, people are asking about the capper.
Wait, and the name of that was Grit?
Grit, Grace, and Gratitude. Virginia McDonald.
That is you, man. That is you. I can see why they had you on. I don't mean to be, but we all know your challenges.
You're turning it back. I'm trying to pump you up.
Oh no, I'm totally into myself lately. I am totally changing my attitude. I'm going to start pumping myself up now. I feel like, I had a birthday. It's a breakthrough.
Season 22 now, you and I together?
What's 22 years? I think it's time for me to be like, I don't know. I'm trying to be more social media savvy, trying to do more of that. And I don't know how you do that without talking about yourself. It's everything my instincts tell me not to do. And yet if you don't do it, you're a dinosaur. And I ain't leaving this being a dinosaur. So I'm going to be out there a little bit more now. Just a little
You're
warning.
not a dinosaur. Yeah, no,
but
we'll
you
see.
could be.
You're social media gun shy though. Sometimes, like you'll do something and then you would be like, I don't know, I gotta. Hey, y'all show me 3 versions of it. Should I put that out here? Can you type it for me?
You know what it is? Yeah, and also my grammar is not, like, my fundamentals in grammar as a kid. You can tell that I wasn't supervised young. And I just kind of, so like, I have a tendency to capitalize things that maybe I don't have to go there, right?
You were a great high school athlete, though, and you were being recruited by colleges. And you got to tell the story of your interview with, was it Hamilton College, which is a very prestigious educational institution up there in upstate New York, but they wanted you. You had a chance to get in because you were a great athlete.
Yeah, you got to tell me when this podcast really did start, right?
This is the podcast. Come on.
This is it. All right, so I'm at Hamilton College, right? And boy, they did everything they could to get me in. Again, I became a good student as I got to college and learned how to study. I wasn't that supervised. I was a latchkey kid. My father passed away when I was a little kid, but I don't need to be solemn here. But so I'm going. So they had to really work hard to get me into college. So I'm there, and this guy, Tom Murphy, who's a wonderful coach there, basketball coach, says, hey, he's prepping me. Just come on, just don't mess it up. Maybe you can get in. Your Uncle John actually gave some money. Maybe you can get in. And it wasn't even, it was an EOP program too. It wasn't even a normal program. So he goes, this guy, this real stuffy guy, I think he had a bow tie. Of course he had a bow tie, right? So, he goes, it goes on, and he goes, how do you do, Tim? How do you do in English? I go, pretty good. He goes, that's well, son. That's
yeah, right
well.
there,
Right there, it was over. Didn't get into Hamilton.
He probably didn't say, how you doing in English either.
No, that's true too.
More formal than
no,
that.
That's true. Well, Tim, how would you?
Tim, how successful has your English been?
Ben, and I said, pretty good. He goes, that's well, son. So I didn't get in there. Yes. Yeah. I didn't know they had people from England, a lot of guys teaching there.
And you never worked on it. Good for you. You just...
No, I haven't. This is me, man. This is me. You got it. Why change now? My habits are so bad.
So, but you have mastered it. This is something that I think in interviewing coaches, I always talk about. You get to that point in your career where you realize that you can find joy in the success of others. I heard Jeff Van Gundy talk about that one day about being a leader or a coach on a team. You can find joy in the success of your teammates, in the success of your players.
Right.
And that's what would probably made you a coach. And you're, like I said, I joked about you being a hype man, but it's true.
I'm not that to everybody, though. I don't just do it just to throw it out. Do you think I'm that like?
No, but to the people that you feel that way.
Yeah.
No, but you feel that way. Like if you feel that way about somebody, you're not afraid to throw compliments out there and pump people up. And the reason I'm thinking about this, Capra, because there's somebody that's been in the news lately that is very much like this. And I'm going to tie it to something with the Nets. So we're taping this. We haven't seen Taylor Swift at the Meadowlands to see Jason Kelce. This is coming up in a couple of days. We're taping this before that. But we did get to see her at Arrowhead Stadium to see Travis Kelce. Right. And I know that you're up on
there?
All the
did you
pop
do
culture
that game?
Stuff. No. I was in Minnesota. I did not.
You're in Kansas City all the time, though.
I was, and I wasn't there for that one, unfortunately. Right. But it is a great environment. If she was going to come to an NFL game, like if people say to me all the time, what's a place, what's your favorite venue? I would say you have to go see a game at Arrowhead. It's amazing. But I'm talking about, like, did you see her reaction when he scored the touchdown? I get it. Like, she's there to see him. He scores a touchdown, but it was like, made it like 34-0. Like even Travis's mom, who was in the box, was just like, yeah, okay, clapping. Yeah. But she's a great height. She reacts in a way that's so exciting all the time for other people. It's like award shows too. You ever see her at award shows? Like she's so psyched for everybody else, right? It's great.
But I don't.
Some people think it's maybe not real. Yeah, yours is genuine. Yeah, yours is sincere and
because
genuine.
I'm not like hyping, like I'm not on camera hyping. or anything like that.
Yeah.
I don't mean it. I just like when good people do great things, man. I really like it. I'll give you an example. You know who's a great analyst? A great analyst, Rebecca Lobo. You know what I mean? That would be an example. The WNBA and the games have been great, right? I listen to her. Ryan Rucco, everybody knows he's terrific. He's really terrific, right? And those two together. But I like when I hear a really good analyst, and I just think she's got it. So I don't know. That would be an example.
There's a perfect example.
All right.
But going back to Taylor and Travis Kelce, does it remind you of something that we've been through in our Nets career.
Yes. Kim Kardashian and Chris
Yes.
Humphries, right?
Yes.
Doesn't that remind you of that?
Yes. Has that feel to it. Except I'm not trying to compare the athletes or the pops. Well, what is Kim Kardashian? But
I think it's Kim. It's very close. You're trying to talk about like popularity.
It was a big deal when she was coming to net games to see Chris Humphries. Remember? I remember the first game that she came to courtside in Minnesota on New Year's Day.
Right.
In Minnesota, sitting next to Chris Humphries' mom.
Right.
That was a huge deal. I remember I was doing TV for that game, and I remember they showed a shot of her, and I called her. I called Kim Kardashian Chris Humphries' girlfriend, and I remember Frank DeGrace, our producer, getting in my ear, and he goes, "Oh, wait, you're going girlfriend?" And I'm like, "Well, it's New Year's Day. She's in Minnesota, sitting next to Chris's mom. I'm going girlfriend."
Right.
Girlfriend.
Right.
But, then she showed up a lot of times, and we could get into a whole thing about it. But
here's a combo that happened in that same year. This is the information we can give you. Remember Maria Sharapova showing up for Sasha
Vujicic.
Yes. So we had a combination of Maria Sharapova and Kim Kardashian dating Nets players. Remember when team
stunk? Team stunk, but the support staff around it was first class.
Remember when they were interviewing Maria Sharapova and they asked her about Sasha and she called him soft? He's a little soft. You know what I always thought? You know what I always wanted to do? And again, I didn't realize we were on, but since we're on, I'll pretend like we're not. But I'll just tell him this. You know what I always wanted to do for Chris Humphrey? I always felt bad for him in that situation. But I wanted to, and again, I always have ideas, but I don't follow through a lot. I wanted to, after she broke up with him, buy him a shirt and to walk out with a shirt that said rebound on it. I thought that would have been cute. I would have thought people would have thought that was really. Then the joke. See, I'm good at laughing at the joke before it becomes the joke. Because I've spent my whole life, self-deprecation works. If he had known that, if I had known Aaron Harris and Gary Sussman and all the PR people, that shirt would have made him so popular. But I blew it.
Oh, we could have. Yeah. And it doesn't work. And I would say we have to do something for Travis Kelce. It wouldn't work because it's not a rebound. I mean,
Nah, but of course, Ian has nailed a couple
shake
big
it off.
calls, right? With shake.
Well, it was funny because we both did. Well, Ian and I were both in Kansas City for that. I'm sorry. We were both doing the Chiefs game in Jacksonville the week before. So all that stuff with Taylor Swift was swirling around, and I'm doing national radio. Ian's doing national TV. After the game, I see on social media, we both did something because he did when Kelce caught a pass in the end zone and he found a blank space. And then there was a play where he dropped the pass on the goal line. And I said, he's got to shake it off. Both were sort of double entendres. I should mention this is the Voice of the Nets podcast. I'm Chris Carrino, along with my longtime radio partner, Tim Capstraw.
Are we starting now? It's official,
and this is the show is officially brought to you by Ticketmaster. But there's Chelsea Jenkins, our engineer, is on the line, and we're going to keep all that. I mean, that is we can't leave that on the cutting room floor. That's
shallots. Are we going to keep shallots?
Absolutely. Why would we not?
Right.
This is, I mean, basically, this is it's a promo for our broadcast on WFAN, which will be continuing on WFAN again this year. And you could hear us. We may do some preseason stuff, not on the radio, but we're still discussing this right now and figure out how they're going to do this, but some preseason stuff. But we'll let you know about that. But we will be on, of course, when the season starts. And we thought we'd come on right now as we're getting ready for Media Day and we're getting ready for the start of training camp, that we do a little training camp primer, a little thing that we're looking at before we've seen any practices or any games. So why don't we do that? We've entertained the folks enough. We've done like second quarter stuff already. If you listen, we get into stuff in the second quarter to keep you interested.
Entertain might be a strong word, by the
Yeah,
way.
it's true.
All right.
Let's get down to brass tacks now and start talking about
Ooh.
this net team, because we did have the press conference of Jacques Vaughn and Sean Marks to kind of tip things off. And the thing I came away with, and it was a good question from someone, I'm sorry that I'm blanking who asked the question, but he asked Sean Marks if you put the roster together this year, with the idea of creating competition in training camp. And I think back to, what you're trying to accomplish in training camp and getting a competitive nature and getting a team that's going to compete. Jacques Vaughn talks about, I want a team that can compete. And I think about, Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks and those great teams that he had. He would have competition Wednesdays. Every Wednesday in practice, you were competing for your job. He wanted them competing at everything. If they were playing ping pong in the locker room, he wanted them to compete hard. And I think that might be a theme here as we go in, because the Nets are a little bit of a Noah's Ark team, as you like to call them, Capper, right? They got a couple of guys at every position. They got a couple of guys everywhere that do the same thing.
I don't know that they have competition because, yes, they have some talent here and there, but they have a lot of guys in that, let's prove it kind of mode right now. And let's see what they got for their NBA careers right now.
Yeah, but they went out and got guys, I think, that are going to push other guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that.
And it was curious to see, we're going to get into the young players and how much of a role they can do and they can play. But certainly, you think about Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal, right? Similar kind of players. They brought in a Dennis Smith Jr. And they bring in
Lonnie Walker. They bring in
Lonnie Walker. They bring in Lonnie Walker the fourth. And those are very similar kind of guys. I just feel like there's going to be this fight for playing time with this team right now, when you don't have a star is not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I do think they have an emerging couple of players that could be not necessarily. I think they're some top players in the NBA. When you evaluate NBA players now, and you're talking about two-way players, Mikal Bridges fits in that mode of a top. You usually say, well, he's maybe a top 30 guy, a top 35. No, but if you're a two-way player, he might be a lot higher than that. You know what I mean? And I think he's one of these guys that's the Nets really hit a home run on. And then, Cam Johnson and guys like that. I think they have players. And again, I'm sure we're going to get into Ben Simmons and the possibilities there and all that. I think they have talent, but I couldn't agree with you more that the team, the essence of the team will be made through tremendous competition, because nothing motivates you more than the loss sitting on a bench or the loss of your job. Listen, if you're interviewing another analyst for my job, man, I am going to be ready that next game. You know what I mean? Same thing with everybody else in this world. It's human nature. And I think the Nets got to use that. Jacques Vaughn's got to use that to his advantage throughout the entire season. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what I took away from Jacques and Sean Marks talking in their press conference was, hey, we know we've got good, young, talented players, but really this is going to be guys that push each other, that are going to compete and pay attention to the details, that do all the little things correctly. And the intangibles. This is a team that's going to have to do the intangibles very well, because they don't have, we saw this last year after the Durant trade. They have, they didn't have that guy to go to at the end that you can just give the ball to and relax and go, here you go score. I mean, this is not that type of team, but it certainly has the type of guys that can push each other to make sure that they take care of all those little details.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think so, but I think you make a really smart point right there, Chris. I think a lot of teams in the NBA are capable of getting to a competitive game with 6 minutes to go in the game. But I think what's going to really be interesting to me, and there's going to be a lot of different things the Nets are going to do because they're going to have a training camp with these guys. And I know they're going to have different things defensively and all that, but it's still going to come down to the last 5-6 minutes of the game. That's when you would notice the difference between having the stars that the Nets have had recently and how are the Nets going to manufacture those type of baskets down the stretch of a game to finish it off. I think is going to be a huge theme along the way. I think competition, playing hard, compete level, all those things really, really matter. And so does being able to figure out what is the most efficient way to put your players in the best situation down the stretch of the game. And I don't necessarily believe that it has to be like everybody else does it. I think the Nets I'm going to be curious to see what the strategy is. I mean, are they going to, remember we've heard the term elephant hunt, look for the weakest player, everybody spread out, now we're going to drive the ball. Or are they going to maybe be a little bit more systematic and say, hey, let's run this play and just see what the offense gives us, as opposed to the ISO ball that you've seen over the years in the NBA. I'm curious about that part of the equation.
Well, we know that a couple of things came up last year in the second half of the year and then in the playoffs is, one, for a team that had a lot of players with terrific defensive reputations, the Nets were not a good defensive team in the second half of the year. And then the other part of it was when they had leads in the fourth quarter, they weren't able to sustain those leads. And it goes back to, maybe not having that closer kind of guy, because you can be a great defensive team in the NBA, but in the end of the game, when you're trying to hold on to a 6 or 8 point lead, that's when you need to be able to score. Like when you're down, you need stops. When you're up, you need to be able to score. And I think those are things that have to get better this year. And what we're hearing, and I think it's valid to a certain degree, is last year's team was thrown together on the fly.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, they weren't necessarily, even the trades weren't made to find pieces that fit. They were just trying to get the best available talent. And then you worked into a situation where these guys never had a chance to really gel, or the coaching staff figure out a system that can best utilize these players. So the exciting part of what we're going into right now is that we see a lot of these players that were brought in that we were excited about last year that now get a chance to grow together, that now get a chance to have a training camp, a preseason. Will they get better at some of these things that we talked about? Rebounding is another issue that we can probably do a whole section on.
Well,
but let's go.
Defense,
let's
too. That's the final stage of defense.
Yeah, and then because when you think about the players on this roster, from Nick Claxton, who was in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year, we know Mikal Bridges is always in that conversation. Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal. I mean, these are players that you're expecting to be terrific defensive players, and now we can throw a healthy Ben Simmons in there,
right?
Who's a former all defensive player in the NBA. Maybe is it now a systematic kind of thing where you have this talent defensively, you're now going through a training camp, you're going through a preseason, you're putting in a defensive system that you've had months to try to figure out with this personnel. That's where I'm kind of expecting this net team to make a jump this year.
I think they'll make a jump, but I do think, and I would be surprised if there weren't adjustments or being able to play multiple styles of defense. Chris, I think last year they just committed to flat out they're going to switch 1 through 5, and really that's why everybody talks about the rebounding. The biggest thing you give up when you switch 1 through 5 is the rebounding. You get too many mismatches going to the backboard. And I think this year, what you got to do, I mean, you do NFL every week. If the worst quarterback, if a quarterback saw the same defense every single time, or a coach, they could punish that. And I think the Nets had the ability to switch. They have a very switchable team, but they don't have the. Look at the bodies of the guys. They're usually 20 pounds lighter, and they're not natural rebounders. So I do think that you're going to see this year, you're going to see adjustments. Jacques alluded to it. I think they'll play they'll switch like they have and be able to do that because Claxton can move around so well. I think they're going to play some drop defense. I wouldn't be surprised if they hard hedged, which is mean they jumps out and they slow the ball there, possibly blitz and rotate. They have those type of athletes that could make the offense uncomfortable. I think that is the key right now, making people uncomfortable, being rotating, being aggressive, leaving it on the line. You have the depth to do it. You don't have great physical natural rebounders, but you have length and speed defensively. So utilize that by scrambling around the court more. I think that's a big, big part of it. I think obviously, blocking out is a big deal and boxing out. They have stats for that, but that wasn't bad, I guess. But just not being, and then see how many guys are on the glass. I'm going to be talking about that all year long. Who is a spectator when the ball goes off the rim and who's going after it? I'm going to call guys out about it because it is the biggest thing the Nets have to do. If the Nets are a good rebounding team, their guards should be challenging to be top rebounders on the team. Think about it. The best rebounding we saw from a guard ever was Jason Kidd. Why did he get all those rebounds? Jason Collins was the best box out guy in the NBA. And the reason why he played. Every big's got a box and go after it. And the guys don't overly box out. And sometimes it neutralizes some of their athleticism. I get that. But I think if the Nets are going to be a capable defensive team, they can't do all this work and not come up with the basketball. The guards and all five, their pursuit of the basketball better be relentless over and over and over again. And then go from there. Sorry, I got a little pumped up, but that's a big deal to me.
No, that's what we love. That's the hype.
No, I mean, I think, yeah. So I think there can be adjustments defensively. They can fly around. I think. You know what I noticed too during the FIBA World Cup? Mikal Bridges on the ball out front is an interesting, like guarding point guards. He's disruptive out there, and I think he's got to even get his. He scored so well and he's such a big deal. He's got to understand that he's got to lead incredibly on the defensive side. You saw it in the World Cup, how he can be so disruptive. There's a lot of these guys that can help,
We'll get into Mikal Bridges in a second because I think there's a lot to discuss just with him. But one thing when you talk about rebounding, and this is an issue, and I know a lot of fans say, well, Sean Marks identified this as a major issue and really didn't do anything to address it per se, even though, he kind of went with some smaller bigs, that he brought in here, like, Trenton Watford, a player like that. I don't know how much of a, factor would be a Darius Baisley. These are kind of guys that can be,
interesting players.
Small ball centers, big players. But one guy that Jacques Vaughn did point out by name when the rebounding stuff came up, and it was, he didn't really call anybody else out by name, but he did call this player out. That was Day'Ron Sharpe.
Right.
And Day'Ron Sharpe, out of all the players on the roster, is the one guy that has the reputation of being a rebounder, especially an offensive rebounder. It's interesting. It seems like Jacques calling him out by name is saying, hey, this is year 3 now in the league for you. We're going to give you an opportunity. Be the rebounder that everybody says you are. Yeah. He's going to get an opportunity this year, and he could be a real interesting player as in terms of does he go to another level, like Nick Claxton did in year 3, or I guess we're going to find out a lot about, his ability to stay in this league.
Yeah, no, I think it's a huge year for him. One thing I am encouraged, I saw pictures of him again. I thought the difference in his body since we interviewed him on Media Day 2 years ago, and he was such a charming, great guy. And what he looks like now, he is an NBA physique. He's lean, he's sharp. He's
Pun
I
intended.
think this is a great yeah, it's a great opportunity for him. Let's see if he can make the most of it. I think again, it remains to be seen, but I like him. I think he has pretty good instincts, but again, he's got to prove it. He's got to prove and show that he's
Yeah.
a worthy NBA player and can contribute.
Let's get in, since you brought it up, let's get into Mikal Bridges. He emerged last year as a guy that could be their go-to scorer, their number one option. We could debate whether or not you're better served if he is your number one option on this team. He probably is. I mean, but the challenge for him, and you just brought it up, to be the leader defensively. The challenge becomes, how do you dig in and be the leader defensively when you're relied upon to be the number one scorer? It's not even so much sometimes a fatigue factor, because we know he's got tremendous stamina.
Right.
But as I brought up, we talked to Jay Wright in a podcast earlier this summer. We were talking about Bridges, and I asked him this same question: how can he be the guy on both ends of the floor? And he said the thing about it is, on the defensive end, you got to worry about foul trouble. You want to be a great defender and you want to be a strong defender. Defenders can get fouls, especially if you're guarding the other team's best player. And
Yeah.
now if you get in a little foul trouble, now it affects you on the other end of the floor because you're not in the game. So that's something also to
Interesting.
think about when it comes to trying to balance those two things.
Yeah. Interesting.
So is he? Are you comfortable with him guarding the best player on the other team if it's not a center, and still being your number one option on the other end?
Well, I think, yeah, I think. Well, again, the Nets are going to switch an awful lot. They're going to be a lot. I think what happens in games is that maybe in the fourth quarter he says, "Give me that guy." You know what I mean? Like, give me
Yeah.
that guy. I'll look to lock him down. Even Kevin Durant used to say that, because you say Kevin Durant is pacing himself on defense or whatever. He's kind of lurking as a guy on the pace. But in the fourth quarter, hey, let me guard him. And I think that could be a role for Mikal Bridges. But I just think there's other. You're not talking about a team that doesn't have other defensive pretty good players.
Yes.
You
because
you're going to have options. You would think you've got options of other excellent defenders to be able to lock down. I think the defensive part of it is going to be interesting. It's what they've got to hang their hat on. I think they've got to change it up, and they've got to rebound the basketball and then run. Chris, one of the best ways to keep a team from attacking the offensive backboard is to outlet and run, so they're scared to go to the glass. So that's another component of it. Get it and go.
Yeah, because second chance opportunities hurt the Nets a lot last year. If you could mitigate that by knowing that there's a risk if you don't get back, we're going to run on you. And that leads us, let's use that as a segue into Ben Simmons, because, we've watched Ben Simmons when he was at his best in the NBA. He is a tenacious defender. And I don't know if there's another player in the league that can push the pace, especially at his size, than Ben Simmons. So, interestingly, Jacques Vaughn brought up the fact in his press conference prior to training camp that he had been asking Ben and pleading for him to do things that now he understands were not physically possible for him.
Yeah.
And that he feels that now Ben Simmons is in a place physically where he is capable of showing us what he did in the past. So that will be still that's something we can't debate. We can't figure that out until we see it on the floor. We can't even factor that in. I will say this. The Ben Simmons we saw on the court last year physically was not the guy that we've seen in the past. And you could just tell by the way he picked up fouls defensively. He just couldn't move the way he was. So if that was an issue with the back, it looked like it. And he went and got that straightened out.
Yeah.
And now that is removed from the equation. Will we see that kind of guy? We don't know that. But if he can be that guy.
Yeah, you don't know that.
Yeah. If he can be that guy, if Jacques Vaughn says it, like now he's more capable physically of doing the things we wanted to see him do. This is a game changer for this net team.
It no doubt about it. It would be one of the big stories in the NBA. Yes, he had physical issues, but obviously confidence was a big factor for him. Also, like I'm sure they're both are tied together. All that we've seen him be a great player in the NBA. I tell you what's the most encouraged. First of all, I like that what he's saying. No, and sometimes say, well, you can't buy what the guys are saying. Show us on the court. He's saying something like, hey, listen, I am ready. I owe it to this team to be a better player. That's a pretty good statement from an NBA player. Here's the thing I really like. I've really been impressed with that I think gives net fans, net team, everybody hope. The way that he might be in the right situation for this right now. To have Mikal Bridges tell you or be so supportive of you, to be so supportive, to be that good of a person. To have Spencer Dinwiddie say the things that he said on a podcast last week about Ben Simmons and the type of player and person or what he's capable of being. Listen, all the writers can write what they want. All the GMs can say what they want. All the coaches can say what they want. You know what players care about? What their players think about them. And right now, his players are supporting him higher than I could ever imagine NBA players doing. If he's going to be able to do it, this is going to be able to be the situation for it. I really commend those guys. Yeah, I mean, they have gone out of their way. I'm talking about Bridges, Dinwiddie, other guys that have been interviewed. They want him to be a good player. And think about Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie's in a contract year, right? He said, listen, if all things go well, he could be the point guard. I can play off the ball. I can do this. I can do that. That is the type of stuff you want to hear from teammates in a player in this situation. And I think it's got a chance, but I'm like everybody else. You're still, skeptical and you're still wondering. But, I'm also a half full guy, and I think he's got a chance. I've seen him be great. If you've been great before, I think you can get it back.
Yeah, this is not a guy who came in the league with everybody thinking he was going to be an all NBA player, all defensive team player, and we're just giving him excuses and waiting for it to happen. We've seen it. Like he's done it in the league. And I get it. We're not Pollyanna and ignoring everything that he's done, everything that's happened in his career, but we have seen it. And now, all right, supposedly physically he's ready to go. Let's see. And Jacques Vaughn has said he's a point guard. I mean, basically in so many words. And that's when he's been at his best. Nets are playing him in some small ball five because I think physically he wasn't up to the challenge of driving it the way he used to. And that brings up another issue here now with this net team is when you have Ben Simmons and you have Nick Claxton, people talk about having multiple non-shooters on the floor. How do you address that as Jacques Vaughn? We're getting your best players on the floor who aren't necessarily, distant shooters threats.
Well, then you've got to be you've got to play you want to play great defense with those guys because they're both terrific defenders. So you want your defense to be at another level. You want to have your fast break game at another level because you defended, rebound, and push the pace. Spacing, like having two non-shooters doesn't matter if you're out in transition. And I think, yes, it does come into play. And the lane can be clogged at times. And it can be, it can make it more difficult. But I don't know what kind of, they're going to have to play some together. They're going to have to, and it's going to be, if Ben Simmons is playing like he played, I think it's going to be okay. I think it's going to be fine. I think he's going to, the way he could attack, the way he could find guys, make sure you have enough shooting. You heard Jacques Vaughn talk about the spacing and how the details got to get better all the time, and all the little details that got to be perfect when guys are out there. Listen, these two guys are too good. There aren't as many great options. Those two are going to have to play together. If he's healthy, they will play together. And yeah, certainly they'll maybe stagger him at times. And if it's not working that night and you can't, if things are clogged offensively, you'll make adjustments. But you've got to go in there. If Ben Simmons is feeling good and playing good, they can play together.
And also, I think that when it comes to Claxton, and it's a guy who's made, big leaps the last couple of years. And, does he have another leap in him? it would probably be his playmaking ability offensively. I think it's something that we've seen glimpses of when he handles it at the
Yeah.
elbow. His ability to take out, to use the dribble to get in the lane, to get to the rim. If he could start to, he's worked on his free throw shooting. It got better last year. If those things can improve, Claxton can make a big jump, and then it's not so much of an offensive liability. Not that he was a liability, but I think he can prove to be a little bit more of a weapon offensively for the Nets.
Well, no, his improvement has been outstanding, and what he can do. Remember, you've interviewed him a number of times. He was a guard in high school. You can see that at times when he handles the basketball. Yeah, he can do that. I don't think he's going to naturally be. I know he's worked on his perimeter shooting. I don't know that you're going to look to him to say, hey, well, he's going to be able to space the floor because he can knock down threes. I think that'd be a lot to ask him in one season to be able to stretch out like that. But yeah, he's a talented, good all-around player, that's for sure, who has great confidence in himself. And when you have confidence and you have talent, good things can happen. And I'd be surprised if he doesn't even take it to another level. He's going to have to, because he's going to be relied on more now. It's a different role for him. He's not playing alongside stars. He's one of the guys now that's got to carry it. I think he's up for it. I think the timing's good for him.
One guy we haven't really, I want to get into the young players and who you think could make an impact this year. But let's talk about a guy that is going to be a key figure that we really, amazingly, this far in, we've mentioned his name, but haven't talked much about him, is Cam Johnson.
Yeah.
A key part of the Kevin Durant deal, played on the United States team in the World Cup, didn't play as significant a role as Mikal Bridges did on that team. But he's an intriguing player, because of his ability to shoot, defend. He's got good size. His character is off the charts. He does somehow go under the radar when you think about this net team, but potentially, he could be their second best player behind Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, no, not. Yeah, that's kind of what he is. And Claxton's there, and guys like that. And maybe
look at what we saw him in the playoffs last year. Yeah, what about the playoffs last year? That game one when the team wasn't playing well, and he almost, willed them back into that game. I mean, he's got take over the game potential, and a high character guy. I'm so excited to see what kind of a leap he can take this year.
Yeah, I do. I go back to that dunk I think he had on Embiid last year. When he kind of took the ball and I took it right at him. I was like, yes, I think he's capable of another level of playmaking. I know that he's a knockdown shooter. I know he's a defender. I know he's solid at everything. I think, again, he could be, given the freedom. I just like, I always talk about you being a smooth operator. He's a smooth operator kind of guy. I thought of him as a guy that should play wearing a tuxedo. You know what I mean? Smooth, looks good, looks like a million. But he's got more than that, Chris. He can, I think, another level of, I don't know, just attack mode, get in the paint.
There's a toughness
make some
about
plays
him
happen.
too.
There's a toughness about
the
him.
The nice guy part of him kind of it makes it go under the radar too. Remember he took a couple of games where he's played with stuff sticking out of his nose because he's bleeding.
Exactly.
And you said the dunk and attacking guys like Embiid. We saw him go. I got a little scared this year in one of the World Cup games where he was going strong to the basket on a fast break and somebody wiped him out. Remember, he fell really hard and he got a little nervous there. But I think there is a toughness. There's a skill. I think what has sort of Net fans backed off a little bit is I think they thought he was supposed to be this 40% 3-point shooter, and he was a little up and down last year. I think his percentage ended up being okay, but it was a little bit of a roller coaster with his consistency on the 3-point shot, which I think was for most. I
don't think that's going to be a problem, though. I don't think that's a.
I think he'll go back to what he was. Yeah,
he'll go back to what he was, and I think he'll be able to build on that. If he's, sometimes guys' 3-point shooting varies based on who they're playing with, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Dinwiddie was a 40% 3-point shooter because he was a catch and shoot 3-point shooter when he played with Luka Doncic. Shot a lot of corner threes. Luka would find him. He even brought that up. It's a little bit tougher when you're handling the ball all the time and you got to heave some shots up and your percentages go down. So you got to find that happy medium. I think Cam Johnson, has the ability to surprise people. I think he can go to another level in his attack mode and playmaking ability, and it'd be fun to watch.
Having sat down with Kevin Ollie for an hour on one of our other episodes this year on The Voice of the Nets, there's a guy that's going to be Jacques Vaughn's number one assistant this year that I think has the potential to be an incredibly good influence on some of these young players that we're talking about.
I couldn't agree with you more. And he's had the experience of dealing with players at that, younger players. He's not he's dealt with, he understands what they're going through. He's got a good feel. Yeah, I tell you what, I was walking during that podcast and my pace increased dramatically. My dog Ace was all fired up because Kevin, you know how some people talk, they just get you pumped up. That was going on with me. And I just heard Will Weaver. These guys are, listen, I like that, Jacques Vaughn went out and got people that obviously, he believes in. And I just think can do a wonderful. I know, Jay Hernandez, okay, was the sharpest 17-year-old kid I recruited in 17 years. All right. The sharpest 17-year-old kid. Now, did I get him when I recruited him? No. Could have helped me maybe. Could have prolonged my career coaching. But Jay Hernandez is evolved now into an incredibly classy, talented NBA coach. And a lot of these guys are going to be head coaches someday, I believe.
Yeah. So no, it starts with and the young players. So we got so much we could talk about, obviously, and we'll do it again as the training camp goes on. You and I will come on.
It started, right? The podcast started.
We're recording.
You gotta let me know.
Derek Whitehead, Noah Clowney, Jalen Wilson, 3 draft picks that the Nets made this year. Clowney and Whitehead, the youngest players the Nets have ever drafted. They're about a month apart. They're still teenagers. Where do you see any of these young players having a major role this year?
I love Jalen Wilson in Summer League. The maturity with talk about knowing how to play. Holy smokes, Chris. He was beautiful. Now, he shot it.
That's a guy who's been at Kansas for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't buy this. Guys are old when they're 22.
No, but I mean, as far as his maturity and what he's been through, and he should be a little more ready for the NBA. Yeah.
Ready. I think he's really ready to make possibly, but I mean, there's a log jam and there's a lot of those guys, right? We talked about Watford. We talked about Bay. I don't know if he finds the time, but I think he's going to be a good NBA player. I really do. Some guys, the great Tom Konchalski would say, loaded with intangibles, right? He's got tons of intangibles, totally knows how to play, totally gets it on every end, his instincts, his passing, his defensive rotations, and the biggest key of all, and this is the one that's going to get him in be an good NBA player or not. In Summer League, he shot plus 40% from 3. If his 3-point shot is going to be there, he's somebody they're going to have to, give an opportunity to. And I know he's a two-way guy, right? He's a two-way guy, but I think he's capable of having a terrific NBA career. I think Noah Clowney has got to evolve. He's going to have to take the year is going to be good for him. He's got to get it. See if he can continue to get better and better all the time. Now, Derek Whitehead becomes the intriguing guy of all, right? The most intriguing of really almost anybody on the roster because of his injury, playing with the injury last year. I like the idea that nobody's talking about we're going to rush him back. No, there's no rush. You can't, and we saw Karis LeVert come back slowly and how good that was for him to take your time and to make sure this guy has the capability of having a great NBA career. Take your time with him, allow him to come back. And Chris, I have to go. I want to watch this. You watch this high school highlights. I know they're highlights, but you can't explode like that. And that's pretty impressive explosion. He shot the ball over 40% from three. In the NBA, if you can explode off the dribble and you can shoot the ball deep and you're less than 20 years old, that's a hell of a thing to work with right there. And they're going to have to take their time, but it's exciting. It's going to be exciting to see what he ends up doing.
Yeah, and I think with Whitehead, I just think that another guy that I sat down with and was just a delightful person.
Right.
Maturity level, his brother played a decade in the NFL, so he knows what it's like to be a pro. And he's got great size. He's 6'7", and he's a point guard. I mean, he's a guy that you talk about explode off the dribble, and he was expected to play that role with Duke, and then got the foot injury and ended up accepting his role at Duke when he came back with kind of like a stand in the corner guy and shoot threes, improved and got better and became a really good 3-point shooter and reliable 3-point shooter. That could be the one we talk about down the road. Wow.
Could be.
The Nets got
You're
this
right.
guy at 20. But
Yeah,
we'll see. There's still a
right.
lot there. I don't know how quickly we're going to see him on the court yet, come back from that foot injury. The Nets are not going to rush him back, obviously. But Sean Marks did say he's going to play this year. So that's something to look forward to. We got a lot to look forward to.
It's exciting.
In training camp, and preseason, we'll have a lot more to discuss. And I think once we start to see some preseason games, Cabber, and we go through training camp and watch some practices, I think you and I will come back and discuss this again and see if any of our opinions have changed or been clarified a little bit more. So looking forward to doing that. Capper, thank you for joining us. We brought it back to Taylor Swift. Let's end it with that. I always like to give people things to watch and listen to at the end of these shows. And, Taylor has a song called Coney Island to make the connection to Brooklyn. She has a song from an album a few years ago. I'm not a Swiftie by any means, but I do hear some stuff and I like it. Because it's like a duet with the guy who's the singer for The National. So I was intrigued to hear it, and it's a great song called Coney Island.
Now, a lot of people a lot of people don't admit to being Swifties, and yet they sing along with the songs a lot. I just want you to know
the songs
that.
somehow.
I know
Coney
the
Island,
songs,
not one of her like upbeat songs, but yeah. But how about this one? And I know it's something that you love, because we watched the show The Bear, and we loved The Bear. I think I turned you on to that show. And there's an episode in season 2 with the cousin Richie called Forks. And there's a moment, it's one of the best episodes of the show. And there's a moment that involves a Taylor Swift song, and it makes your hair stand up. I mean, it
does make you. That is a great
moment.
Scene to see Richie turn it around and be fired up in his cut. That was great. And he's pounded on the dashboard. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, that's one of the great shows.
There you go. Capper, thank you so much for joining us. See you in Media Day and training camp coming up as we get ready for season, 22 together.
22.
22nd season.
Next time we do this, though, let me know when we begin. Because
let me know the next thing
conversation with you.
That Chelsea sends you out for that you can't find, and maybe I can.
Shallots. If you know what a shallot is, that.
Let me know, and then this way you don't have to go back to Chelsea. I'll just tell you, because I would know what a shallot is.
No, but I think it's her own little jokes she has. Let me get rid of them for an hour and a half. She puts one or two of them on every list. It's a joke, and shallot was the one today.
There you go. All right, Capper. Thank you. That's the Capper, Tim Capstraw. I'm Chris Carrino. Thanks to Chelsea Jenkins, our engineer. Thanks to our producer, Steve Goldberg. We'll talk to you again next time right here. Thanks for listening, subscribing, giving it a good rating to the Voice of the Nets.